Good morning, Year 10, and welcome back to what will be the final week of home learning before people start to come back into school, or before the majority of us start to come back into school on a very part-time basis. I do hope you're well, and before we start the lesson, I've just got a couple of notices that I would like to give. Just on behalf of Mrs. Turner, obviously the student leader applications close, I believe, in a couple of weeks' time. And what we want to see is plenty of those applications coming in. Remember, you need 2 teachers to sign your application before you send it to Mrs. Turner. If you're in my tutor group in particular, do pop me an email if it's something that you're interested in or you'd like to discuss further. Speaking of emails, what I would like to say is that as teachers, we are sending out a lot of emails. Some of you have been quite ignorant and not replying to those emails. If we can't speak face-to-face in school, it's absolutely vital that you don't ignore messages that we send you. One, because it's important that we communicate and that we get work done, or we can organise ourselves in whichever way we require. And secondly, because it's rude not to. And then what I did want to say is just a massive well done for those of us who have managed to kind of maintain a routine when it comes to these lessons and also your other subjects. I teach 45 people in Year 10, and around about 40 of you are consistently doing these lessons, and the majority of those 40 people are doing them on time. Having said that, a handful of you are still not engaging, so you've just done nothing for a couple of months now, which frankly isn't good enough. I do have a couple of concerns though, Year 10, about Lesson 6 on Forest Under Threat. Lesson 6 on Forest Under Threat was the last lesson before the holiday, so 2 weeks ago. And if you're in 10B, you would have done this on the Thursday, and if you're in 10D, you would have done this on the Friday. And unfortunately, only 31 people have completed that Educate quiz. So I am kind of expecting far more of you to do that lesson, because you've come back after half term and you've done lesson 7 and lesson 8, but actually a lot of you are still missing lesson 6 from before half term. So those of you that have done lesson 6, massive well done to Jacob, Ellie B, Brandon, Dan, Ellie G, Will, Bella, Alex, Will, P, Ben, S, Chelsea and Rosie in 10D. And in 10B, well done to Joel, Emily, Grace, Lucy, Katie, Trav, Zach, Kaylee, Hermione, Caitlin, Danny, Sophie, Jamie, Leon, Aaron, Kai, Sam, Lee and Madison, who have also done that lesson. If I haven't read your name out, you need to do it for me today. Okay, so what I would like to do now is make a start on the lesson. So in the back of your exercise books, if you can complete for me the do now task. These are some words that we'll have come across over the last couple of lessons, and I would like you to see whether you can fill them in. Okay, so now that you've unpaused the video, I would like you to go back and mark your answers and correct any that you got wrong or that you couldn't do. Here are the answers. Okay, in the front of your exercise books today, you need your exercise books for this lesson, and you also need the information sheet. Can you write today's title? Sustainable Forest Management and Alternative Livelihoods in the Tropical Rainforest. Sustainable Forest Management and Alternative Livelihoods in the Tropical Rainforest. Pause the video whilst you write the title, and then press play again when you're ready for me to begin. Okay, so this is the last lesson on the tropical rainforest before we finish the topic next time on the taiga. And what we're going to be looking at today is the ways in which we can kind of reframe or re-look at how we can use the tropical rainforest. Because we know we've got this constant conflict whereby the way in which we currently use the tropical rainforest that requires deforestation, so potentially for mining, for energy, for farming, for logging and the selling of hardwood. All of those things have detrimental or negative effects for biodiversity and rainforest structure and the nutrient cycle. They all place ecosystem stress upon that biome. And in turn, it means that we lose some of the ecosystem services that the tropical rainforests provide, like nutritious soils, like flood regulation, like atmospheric gas exchange, and so on. So actually what this lesson's about, it's about finishing the topic in quite an optimistic way to kind of sort of say, well, what are the different ways in which we can make money from the tropical rainforest, that we can generate income, we can use the tropical rainforest in ways that we need to, but in a way that doesn't have the same level of disadvantage, of detrimental. Answer these two questions. What is sustainable forest management, and why is it hard to achieve? Well, if there's one word that you would ever need to learn in the study of GCSE geography, it's this idea of sustainable or sustainability. And it means more than just to keep something going. Okay? For geography, I need a more detailed definition. So, sustainable forest management is when we use a forest in a way that prevents long-term damage, while still allowing people to benefit from the resources that it provides right now, so at present. There are lots of different things that you can do to achieve that, and we'll talk about that later on. But it's not easy to achieve. We mentioned a couple of lessons ago that Brazil was a country that had started to curb its deforestation and started to reduce the rate at which it was taking place. But in 2015, it started to go back up again. So obviously Brazil is struggling to maintain this sustainable forest management, and they're not the only country that does struggle, and it is difficult to achieve. So just to kind of say that again, all right, sustainable forest management is looking at ways in which the rainforest can be used for its resources or to generate income, but doing so in a way that protects the forest or reduces the damage, so that future generations can also benefit from its presence. But why is it difficult to achieve? Why is that scenario difficult? So here's the question. Why is sustainable forest management hard? Why is it difficult? Well, the economic pros are long term. All right, the economic advantages are long term. It takes a while to start to reap the benefits of some of these strategies that I talk about later on. And if you're in a country that's seeking rapid economic development, particularly if you're a country that's in foreign that has lots of foreign debt to pay back, or a country whereby lots of the population are impoverished, then actually asking people to be patient for the economic benefits of sustainable forest management might be too difficult for them to take, and actually they would prefer more rapid ways of generating income from the tropical rainforest, such as through mining or through logging. Non-sustainable, and this is kind of similar, it's kind of linked, uses are lucrative. I've got saying that word, lucrative. Lucrative means when you can make a lot of money out of something. So if you've got oil underneath your tropical rainforest, or you want to clear a large area of it to build a palm oil plantation, or you want to build a hydroelectric power dam, or you want to cut it down and sell the hardwood, you can generate a lot of income from that. So again, it's trying to convince people to do something different they would have to turn their back on or give up a very profitable industry or industries. On the other hand, sustainable forest management is usually expensive. Because the methods of using the tropical rainforest in a sustainable way are more technical, more niche, require more expertise, as a result, they're more expensive. Some of the strategies, and again we'll talk about these shortly, like replanting, so one approach to sustainable forest management is replanting. So if you cut a tree down, you replant another one. But the benefits of that take a long time to come into fruition, because obviously the tree has to grow, okay? And as a result, that kind of delay could still lead to a loss of biodiversity, a loss of ecosystem services, whilst you're waiting for that tree to grow back. Sustainable forest management is difficult because the demand for all of those unsustainable products that we get from the rainforest, so whether that's palm oil, whether that's mining materials, whether that's a water supply or hydroelectric power, whether that's hardwood, whether that's wood that's used for fuel. The demand for all of those things is increasing. It's increasing for two reasons. One is population growth, and the other is rising affluence. So people in general becoming wealthier. Okay, those two things increase the demand for those resources. And sustainable forest management is difficult because this is all about trying to change human behaviour. Having said that, at quite a local or regional scale. But whilst you might succeed in doing that, despite how difficult it is, climate change might be happening or is happening anyway. So that could kind of come along and remove all the progress that you've made anyway, through some of its, in some cases, permanent changes to the tropical rainforest climate and biodiversity and net primary productivity that will be brought about by climate change. So it's hard work, all right? Sustainable forest management, using the forest in a way that means that you benefit from it, but without preventing future generations from being able to do the same, is tricky for all of those reasons just discussed. What I would like you to do underneath your title in your exercise book is make a start on forming some form of notes for this. So either as a mind map like this one, but I'd like yours to be a little more detailed, or as a set of Cornell notes, okay, where the first kind of key aspect that we've covered is the definition of sustainable forest management, and the reasons why it is a challenge, why it's difficult to achieve. You can pause the video whilst you do that, and then we'll move on to the next kind of key element shortly. Okay, so now that we know what sustainable forest management is and why it's difficult to achieve, we want to think now about, well, what are these alternative ways of generating income from the tropical rainforest? What are these sustainable methods that might exist? How can we reframe the way in which we use the tropical rainforest? We need some concrete examples of what this actually looks like. So, indeed, the best way to protect the tropical rainforest might be to encourage alternative livelihoods. Alternative means different use for the same thing. And this is about focusing on different ways of making a living from the rainforest that do not involve large-scale deforestation. So ways of making a living from this forest without cutting it all down. You have to think outside the box to try and achieve this. Okay, and there's kind of two key areas we're going to look at. One is sustainable farming, and the other is ecotourism. Okay, so one is sustainable farming and one is ecotourism. Let me take you through sustainable farming first of all. Sustainable farming is about finding ways to farm that do not damage the soil so that the land can stay productive. Okay, so you don't have to clear a new area of land every couple of years, because the original type of farming you do doesn't wreck the soil. Okay, you're not disturbing that nutrient cycle so much that the soil becomes unusable after a couple of crop rotations, after a couple of years, and you don't therefore have to cut another tree down. So 3 different ways in which you can achieve this idea of sustainable farming. And the first is agroforestry. And this is where you plant crops and trees at the same time. And it means that the tree roots keep kind of soil together and they still protect the soil from heavy rain whilst you've still got the crops growing in between. And that's called agroforestry. The second is crop rotation. Okay, this is where crops are moved between different fields each year, and you always leave one field empty. Okay, so that the soil in that field has time to recover. Okay, so rather than completely hammering one particular field year after year after year, you have 3, and you rotate which ones you use season after season. Okay, and that allows that time for the ones that aren't being used to recover and grow back. And the last kind of way in which you can achieve sustainable farming as an alternative way of making money out of the forest is through training programs. And this involves actually teaching some of these local people particular farming techniques that keep soils fertile for longer periods of time. Or you inform them of the type of crops that give higher yields, so that bring about more food for a fewer number of plants. Therefore, the land that has already been cleared in these cases can support more people with less of a need to clear new land. Okay, if you teach people how to become better at something, then they can also become more efficient. All right, they're able to farm in ways that are more successful without having to clear more land. So we've got agroforestry, crop rotation, and training programs. That's not to say that local farmers are not rich in expertise and they know their area the best and their methods the best, but it's about supporting that and underpinning that with education. The other one that I mentioned was ecotourism. Okay, so we know that we've got to think about alternative ways of making money from the tropical rainforest, despite it being difficult. We just covered sustainable farming as one method. We now need to look at ecotourism. Okay, so ecotourism is tourism that minimises, so reduces, damage to the environment whilst benefiting local people, meaning a living can be earned without the need to cut the trees down. Okay, so tourism, so people visiting the area and spending money in the area in a way that doesn't damage the environment whilst benefiting the locals. Okay, reduces the need to cut trees down. And that's really important. The opposite of ecotourism is what we call mass tourism. So if you think about people flocking to Benidorm, Brits abroad in Benidorm in July, that is mass tourism. That's lots and lots of people visiting a particular area with very little regard for the environment. In a sensitive location like this, ecotourism is the opposite. It's more expensive, it's smaller scale, and it actually seeks to protect the environment. Okay, so it's virtually the opposite of mass tourism. If a country is becoming more reliant on ecotourism for its income, okay, then the government really have to kind of take a serious look at it and think, well, actually, we need to protect these trees then. Because if the whole point of these tourists coming to our country and spending this money is to view the tropical rainforest, then we're actually going to be in a tough position if we remove it all, because there's nothing for these ecotourists to then come and visit. All right, so the rainforest becomes a valuable product by being a rainforest, instead of for all the other things that you can get it to do, like cutting it down and selling the wood, or cutting it down and accessing the minerals under the ground, or cutting it down and building a reservoir. Okay, it's actually profitable by just being a rainforest. So it's small scale. As I said, you can only have a certain amount of visitors in any one area at any one time. A lot of the well stays local, okay, and it can draw upon local cultural features. So you might have people that are involved in trying to make local products alongside some of the locals, or experience certain cultural activities. And it does raise awareness of these sort of issues, and it attracts donations as a result to help protect these areas. So people kind of really feel for these areas, and then they contribute through donations as a result, through word of mouth. Okay. Once that's done, all right, we have got to do the following. So, have a read of the sheet that is attached to this lesson, and then once you've done that, you need to do this task. Now, you've already started this in your exercise books for the reasons why sustainable forest management is difficult to achieve. So finish those notes, so complete a page of Cornell notes in your book using the sheet. So that's your sustainable farming section. And your ecotourism section. And then there's an educate quiz. And I'd like you to have a second go at that educate quiz if you get less than 85%. I have a small suspicion that one or two of you are just doing the educate quiz and not doing the lesson. More for you if that's the case. Please don't do that, but I can probably tell if that's the case from your unusually low score. But having said that, the vast majority of you are doing a cracking job on the old educate. If you've got any questions, do pop me an email. If I email you, reply please. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your lessons for today, and I'll see you next time. Take care.